Hello and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door, and today I'm talking about tarot and St. John's Wort. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. Some announcements right now. So I recently did a virtual tarot card crafting event. If you weren't able to attend live or didn't register in time, you can go ahead and get the full hour-long recording with my step-by-step method, examples of the tarot cards I've created, journaling questions, and a 15-page PDF to walk you through it for just $33. You can click here in the show notes to purchase now. Another thing I have coming up is I'm going to be offering a 12-week Tarot for Transformation live course this summer. So if you're interested, there's a link to sign up for more information. You're not committed to anything right now. I'll just be able to send you more information as we get closer to it, probably starting at the end of August. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. If you want to support the podcast financially, I did just update my Patreon benefits to be bigger and better than ever. If you want an individual card pulled for you once a month live on my New Moon Collective Tarot readings, join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family at the Lovers level. If you'd like to support the podcast even further, you can get a one-time individual 5-card reading in addition to all the other benefits if you join the Witch Bitch level on the Patreon. If you are local to me in the greater Puget Sound area, you can join me at my next Let's Talk Tarot meetup group event. We'll be meeting at the old Hangout, which is all the way downstairs in the Tacoma McMinimans, the Elks Lodge, from 1 to 3 p.m. on July 27th. The bar down there is a fun tiki lounge. Bring your tarot cards, your questions, and your obsession with tarot, and come meet other witches and tarot folks in your community. The link to RSVP will be in the show notes. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and more. And if you don't already know, I am a sex and relationships therapist, seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients. So if you'd like to work with a therapist that doesn't judge you, is witchy just like you, and helps you learn how to deal with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex, head to my website and book a free consultation now to start your journey. And you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. All right, so welcome to season 11, where I'm talking all about tarot and plant allies. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you should check those out. I've done a season on tarot basics. I went through all the major arcana cards. I've talked tarot and pop culture, tarot spreads. I've gone through all the suits. So essentially, I've done an episode on every single card, all 78 cards in a traditional tarot deck. And my last season was about tarot and witchcraft. And so now into this season 11, I'm talking all about tarot and plant allies, and today I'm talking about tarot and St. John's Wort. So let's talk about plant description. I'll go through the plant magic, its relation to tarot, and some uses for the plant. So St. John's Wort is also known as Hypericum perforatum. In Latin, St. John's Wort is a perennial herb found in woodland edges, grassland, and disturbed ground. A fantastic first aid herb, its antimicrobial properties help to disinfect wounds, reduce inflammation, and aid in healing. Its affinity for the nerves make it useful for shooting nerve pains, shingles, neuralgia, and sciatica. Its anodine and inflammation modulating properties make it valuable for many injuries, strains, and bruising. relaxing. St. John's wort is commonly taken for stagnant depression and to lift mood. It has many contraindications, however, and cautions for people taking selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, also known as SSRIs, and monoamine oxidase inhibitors, MAOIs, for depression, as well as a wide variety of other medications that need to be considered before use. So again, before you use any plant medicine, please consult your herbalist, your naturopath, professionals, especially to check for contraindications, because if you're taking multiple medications or even supplements, they can interact with each other. So that's really important here. And the look of the plant is, it depends on where it's growing. So if it's in more the disturbed ground or edges of things, often I've seen it growing in like gravel, like a lot of other plants I've talked about. It will be very close to the ground. It will be these different green tendrils that come out from the middle, and they have very small sort of rounded leaves, sort of uniquely on the stems. And then, you know, in places where it has more nutrients, like I grow St. John's wort in my yard and it gets up to like 3 feet tall because I grow it intentionally as a plant. Most of the time when I see St. John's wort, it's like in a ditch on the side of the road. And so it looks differently there. So if you're lucky enough to, you know, see the tall spires of flowers, it grows, like I said, up to, you know, 3 feet tall in my yard. I have lots of it. It does spread by seed, and it can be slightly, maybe not invasive, but noxious, or it will spread because the seeds are very, very tiny and the birds like to get them. And so it might spread throughout your yard. It doesn't spread necessarily by roots, so underground, but it will spread by seed, and it produces a lot of seeds. So it produces very hard seed heads, similar to the evening primrose to some extent, like a very hard, like dries out, turns into a seed head, and has minuscule seeds, like a speck of dirt looking seed. And yeah, it grows kind of tall, like I said, and then it will send out multiple branching stems with like a very dark green leaf that's more circular or oval. And it will have all these tiny, like little yellow flowers all over it. And I actually picked some earlier, and they're already sort of like curling up. But when you first pick them, when you see them on the plant, they are like 5-petaled, small flowers, so you know, like a little pentagram there, and they have these like reddish like stamens on them, like the pollinator part of the plant. And so what I like to do with St. John's wort is infuse oil with it. So around midsummer time of year or solstice, St. John's wort blooms, which is part of its like name affiliation, and you can pick a bunch of flowers and dry them and pour some kind of oil over them. So like take them, let them dry out a little bit, let them get the bugs off, which I definitely have some bugs in my office right now because I brought the flowers in and didn't give them a chance to kind of take off. So yeah, bring them in, let them dry out a little bit. They dry out pretty quickly off the plant because they're quite small. And then you can kind of like stuff a jar with them. Like you could put a ton in there, and then you pour oil over the top, put the lid on, and actually usually St. John's wort is infused in sunlight because again, it's a very sunny plant. It blooms at solstice. It has all these sun qualities. We'll talk about its affiliation with the sun tarot card. And so as it infuses in sunlight, the red parts that you don't really see unless you look kind of closely on the plant, so the oil will turn from a yellowy generally to like a red, almost sometimes like a blood red, not quite that dark, but like syrupy blood red. And actually I do like oil cleansing, which is just like, instead of using a soap on your face, you can use oils to cleanse your skin as face wash. And I generally use St. John's wort in the winter on my skin for facial cleansing, and in the summer I use calendula because in the winter I'm trying to like bring in that sunny energy that I'm missing from summer. Like I said, right, it's the St. John's wort is commonly taken for depression and to lift mood. So again, like it's a sunny plant that can kind of be uplifting in wintertime. Yeah, you do have to be careful because sometimes it will like make sure to still wear sunscreen in winter because it can like impact your skin's ability to have its like what am I trying to say? Like a protective layer on. Yeah, okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. And again, very cool to see how it turns reddish. I have tons of it in my yard. I like growing it. Yeah, it's very fun to see it bloom on solstice. This year for me, it bloomed a little before solstice, but pretty close. And I still have some blooming now, although it's definitely like fading. It's getting a lot of seed heads at this point. So let's talk a little bit more about the plant magic of St. John's wort. So on the partyinthemyths.com website or blog, they are talking about St. John's wort, the card from the Herb Crafter's Tarot by author Letitia Guthrie and artist Joanna Pole Colbert. And they talk about that this card's a good reminder that sometimes we must make our own happiness. We might tire of the expression happiness is a choice, and it might be an oversimplification for some that struggle with depression or anxiety, but is accurate. St. John's wort is one of our many natural tools to deal with such things. So it's a good and sunny representative of the work needed. Don't allow yourself to spiral down too far. The sun is ready to shine upon your face. And again, St. John's wort is affiliated with the Sun Tarot card. It's about cultivating happiness, vitality, and joy. The peak of summer powers ward off every ill. Shine on, celebrate yourself and your successes. And so even in this card, the Herb Crafter's Tarot, they show, again, kind of a lot of the flowers, the bunches, like on the plant, and they actually show that like red oil that happens when you infuse oil with St. John's wort. It says a clear jar of red infused oil encircled by bunches of St. John's wort sits on an indigo dyed cloth. A crown of blood red oil in vials adorns the top of the bouquet. The bright yellow flowers tumble onto a replica of the ancient mixed sunstone, which hides beneath the green mass. A few flowers have fallen into the jar of oil. And the meaning of this card is happiness begets happiness. Radiate liveliness and vitality. Fully experience the sheer gift of being alive. St. John's wort is best known as a mood-lifting plant, but it also repairs skin from trauma, soothes nerve-related pain. The flower buds emit a rich pigment that yields vibrant red potions. The flowers and buds peak at the height of summer, the most potent time for wild crafting. So you can make magic and medicine when your joy is in full bloom. Seek vibrant people and healing experiences that build good energy and boost your power. The leaves of St. John's wort shimmer like diamonds when held up to the sun. Step into the light and show your sparkle. So again, you can bring these flowers into your home. You can make oils or different kind of like potions with them. I'll talk about it a little bit. And yeah, just that sort of idea of like also the redness and yellow, like bringing a lot of life and vitality back to ourselves. Yeah, so when we think about St. John's wort and its relation to the tarot, I found some references talking about the King of Swords, which I thought was interesting. So on the tarotforum.net, they talked about the King of Swords being affiliated with St. John's wort in the herbal tarot deck. And they actually depict a king seated on a pile of rocks, holding a sword upright in his left hand. A large sprig of St. John's wort is in front of them. And so they talk about the crown with the King of Swords represents authority. The rocks symbolize stability. The sword symbolizes strength. And the St. John's wort symbolizes freedom from pain. The clouds symbolize hope. Words associated with it are intellectual, analytical, articulate, just, and ethical. And again, because of St. John's wort's affinity for sort of dealing with nerve endings and nerve irritation, whether it's like a cough or pain or neuritis or neuralgia. That is part of like how it gets used. So the interpretation of this card, so right, if you were to pull this or see this plant, the vibe is like, this is a stable time. Things are falling into place. You'll feel stronger once all is as it should be. You may meet or already know someone who's intellectual, just, and ethical. These may be also traits that will help you during this time. And so when we also think about the King of Swords, it is this like, so swords, right, are air sign, and then kings are associated with air. So we have like airy part of air, so like double air. And St. John's Wort is also under the celestial sign of Leo and the dominion of the sun. So again, all of the sun like affiliations, but also this King of Swords here. So I did pull a King of Swords card from the Sacerobito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington. And then the other cards I pulled were the sun cards. So I pulled the Sun from the Therapist Who Tarot deck by prompts by Drea Bloom and images by Rebecca Bloom, and the word associated with it is good fortune, which we love. And the reflection questions on the back say, what keeps you up at night? What is something you must accept? And who or what are you beginning to doubt? All right, and then I also pulled the Sun card from the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu. And on here we have again a sun. We have like the eye of Horus with that's like yellow here placed on top of the sun with these red gems or sort of like blood tears falling down. We see a sort of lion like faded in the background, and then there is a god on here. I'm gonna pull the book up real quick because I'm not totally sure what god is depicted here on the sun card. Where are we? I'm almost there. The moon, the sun. Oh, it's Sekhmet, and they show the like Sekhmet as symbol as well. Yes, and Sekhmet is a lion-headed goddess of lust, blood, and divine rage. Sekhmet is also a goddess of healing, embodying the duality of the sun and serving as a lesson to mind the intensity of your carnal longings. The sun is an omen of warmth and joy, a guide through the perils of whatever journey you're on. Yeah, and just when we think about the sun energy, it's sort of fueling things, it's active, it's love turned outward, it's rebirth and illumination, right? Literal illumination. It's the center of the circle, the solar sphere around which all life, at least in our galaxy or in our solar system, like orbit. The sun is the lust of passion, felt within the seat of the soul, felt within the self that is greater than the I. So it also brings us into this sort of like communal state or collective state. All right, so let's finally get into some of the uses for this plant. So like I said, the most common one, especially in like herbalist arenas, is using it to infuse oil. Let me read the magical herbalism aspects of it. Oh, I didn't bookmark that page. Let me find it again. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, let's get into uses. So let's see. So this is very niche, but again, because of sort of the like vein or nerve like repair it can do, there is a calendula and chamomile gel you can make that also has St. John's Wort flowers in it. So it has 1 part chamomile, 1 part St. John's Wort, 2 parts calendula, vegetable oil, and petroleum jelly. And again, you infuse both the chamomile and the St. John's wort and the calendula in a jar with oil. Leave on a sunny windowsill for 2 weeks, shaking daily. You strain it. After that, you can use a muslin or a coffee filter, and then you add some of that 1 part of the oil to 2 parts of the jelly in a double boiler until it's all combined, and then you pour it into glass jars, and you can use it on like veins or on hemorrhoids even. Okay, here we go. Here's where I found the correspondences. So St. John's wort is affiliated with counter magic, protection, clearing, midsummer, repels negativity, purification, and exorcism. It's ruled by the sun, the element of fire, and the sign of Leo, sacred to sun gods, particularly Baldur. What else? So I found a kitchen protection charm in here that uses St. John's wort. So it combines sage for wisdom, rosemary for remembrance, lemon balm for joy, St. John's wort for protection, and lavender for peace. And this is actually a thing where you would take like a sprig or like a cutting of each plant and tie them together with red thread. And you can trim them off like on either side of the ties, and so you have them kind of all even, and as you tie them, you visualize creating protection and happiness for your home and family. And there's like a saying you can say with it. It's a charm. It says, I tie the sage for wisdom to know what is truly important. I tie this rosemary for remembrance so that I might not forget it. I tie this lemon balm for joy that I might celebrate it. I tie the St. John's wort to protect it, and I tie this lavender to keep it in peace and harmony. All right. I also found a banishing potion that uses St. John's wort. So it uses 1 pint of boiling water and a teaspoon of birch bark, a clove of garlic that's crushed, a teaspoon of juniper berries, a teaspoon of rue, and a teaspoon of St. John's wort. And you pour the water over the herbs and infuse it for 20 minutes covered, and then strain it and use it to sprinkle around the area you need to banish negative energies or spirits from, using a sprig of fresh hyssop or rosemary. It says make it at the waning moon and do not take internally. All right, and then finally I wanted to talk about its affiliation with rituals. So in cleansing and purification, St. John's wort gets used in rituals as well. So again, it is this sort of like clean it out energy, right? Which can be that like sort of sunniness for depressive symptoms, or even just for like working with other things like nerve endings, which are challenging to kind of repair once they've been damaged. It can really help with that. All right, so yeah, let's pull a card to see what St. John's wort has to share with us. And I'm going to pull from the Anima Mundi deck by Megan Weirer-Wenden. Gonna give it a quick shuffle. So how can we protect and purify? How can we embody the sun's energy and illuminate? It needs to be illuminated. All right. And I got the 7 of Cups. Interesting. 7 of Cups is about choices. On this card, it's depicted as bioluminescence. It says 1,000 meters below the ocean's surface lies the aphotic zone, also known as the midnight zone. No sunlight reaches here, and many of its creatures rely on bioluminescence for light. Look, we're talking about light. In this pitch blackness, things are uncertain. Is that light in the distance prey or predator? You may be faced with a lot of choices before you, but be wise in choosing which will benefit you and which will not. Do not get so caught up in your dreams that you start to ignore reality. So upright, it's about illusions, imagination, wishful thinking, fantasy, and choices. And yeah, I pulled it in upright, so I will just read that one. But interesting. So, right, St. John's Wort is saying, like, I'm here to help illuminate things, right? You're going to have a lot of things in front of you. You're going to have these 7 cups of things that you don't quite know what's in them until you drink them. But be wise in choosing which will benefit you and which won't. So, right, we have to decide what we're going to keep and what we're going to get rid of. Don't get so caught up in your dreams that you start to ignore reality. All right, so thank you for that message today. So in closing, if you'd like to join me on the journey of using the tarot for transformation, you can click on the link in the show notes to indicate your interest in receiving more info. We'll be working together for 12 weeks of calls and journaling to discover what happens when we want to transform our lives through the tarot. And links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. You can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.